Hello, folks. Welcome to the Political Minute. I was wanting to try to start off today with a little bit of fact checking and everything. In saying this, while most people will probably get mad at me, there is one single situation here. I've had some colorful conversation commentaries, whatever you want to call it, in the last, 12 years, 8 years, 6 years over Obama. And I would have to say I'm probably guilty of something sitting around there. I'd like to say that I'm the person who turns in somebody or something else, but I'm not. I've done that once or twice and just been like, this conversation does, scare me or something. Whether I was in elementary school or something else, or makes me concerned, I guess you could say. Everybody likes using fear to cover every single thing out there with it. So, as it is, if there is something that you hear, even if you don't like the person, turn it in. Write it out on a piece of paper. Doesn't mean that you're the Unabomber, serial killer, whatever it is. However you do, and write it in and send it to whoever it is in the government. Secret Service, FBI, CIA, however it is, and it will be forwarded to the proper authorities. It will naturally, through the processes that you label who it is, the name and the office or the person, will make its way up through the chain of command. Now, should you necessarily turn it into your local police or something else, or local area? Maybe not. Maybe, if you think things are imminent or something else like that, turn it into the Washington, D.C. Bureau area. Turn it into them, and wherever it goes to, it goes to. If nothing comes out of it, nothing comes out of it. Now, do you turn it in every single time? Maybe not. And I think the real reason people are charged up about Obama being back in, and I think they honestly would rather try to color it, and I do mean color it, make it racial, because they would rather make it racial than something else that is really out there, which I want to tell you right now is 100% the fact that he is an NIV Bible. Now, we do not have any form of legal Christianity in the world here that has any authority over any citizen, civilian, or anything else. And it really is just a fellowship. We get along at this church, and, we have severed ties at New Year's if you don't go back to it. Therefore, there's no religious continuational opinions or anything else, and it is a personal situation with you under whatever. It goes for synagogues, goes for, which, yes, granted, I will say, I do know some Nordic languages. Synagogue means in this and that, and means the church in certain northern areas, and is not what we think of here in the United States necessarily. Just like there's different classifications of whatever Spanish religious houses are, from missions to chapels to churches to other things out there with that. And it's a very hard situation to do. Now, in pushing this along, he's mentioned that he's a black Muslim now. At least that's what I've seen on the television. And my mother was like the other day, and it's like, when he was in office, he was Jewish. And before he was in office as the president, he was Christian. And that's just something that is underneath the NIV Bible with how they say they're the Abrahamic faiths. They are Christian and they're sacrificing themselves, doing everything to get to the highest point, the zenith of themselves. And then all of that comes back to them whenever they reach their zenith as a Jew, and that which is the NIV Bible. Then after that and everything else, granted they'll say that there's like Jehovah's Witness or the Book of Mormon that's like Shadows of the Empire or something else with this, which, is for another time on anything else. Which is just interesting with how they line up everything. And I just looked at, honestly, with it, and I go, it does fit everything out there. I mean, Israel is not under the NIV Bible. And now he says that he is a black Islamic, which he can go through his family situation on it, which can be done and everything else. And I'm sure there's something to be said about anything out there if you go back in somebody's lineage far enough, even if they claim it themselves, which is generally the only way you can really say anything about someone's lineage or family. The whole aspect of this whole reference here is that one realizes that we do have a starting of probably a religious war here. And since also under the NIV Bible, this is probably one of the reasons why they say that they're not really Americans and have pushed it in certain areas out there. Because the NIV Bible is that which is a tool of the Mussolini family house. It was made, canonized off of the Mussolini in their dictation of the world, that there would be that there, just as they will have a Christian Druidic Bible that they have been planning, that, they live in the area, they talk. They've lived here since before it was a colony. We've tried deporting them numerous times. And since they basically live and own the judicial houses and they can't believe that someone in a little town is completely all that one person unless they're Amish, they just decide who's going to get their name changed. And since the things come down to the local military, police, or people there, they're going to be getting what they were getting. Anyway, with the Obama entrance into this, I'm sorry for it running a little long, I just want to tell you, this is a perfect working situation out there over it. Yes, I've heard about presidential edicts. I just had somebody say that you could go to whitehouse.org or whitehouse.government/org and type in edicts and everything. And about how he changed the DNA to say that he was Jewish because it didn't represent the Roman principalities. And if they weren't with everything out there with Mussolini, then they were considered to be Jewish because Jews had to descend from the Christian cult, which has been at war throughout the entire Old Testament Bible until they were led by Jesus, their main prophet, which is a factual situation. It's been proven on the Discovery Channel, been proven. I'd cite Nick Peters for several of his college papers at numerous different places out there. One of the reasons why I hung around with him, and it's like, you basically are just, preaching to the choir with your stuff out there on it. And he finally got his doctorate. And these are things that came out of Harvard and everything else, that Jesus really isn't Jewish. He may be one of the Pope Pius Jews, and that group's been around since the time of Eden, and was in each one of the different Bibles out there from it. And people are like, it can't be happening. But I do believe people want to push that it's more racial because they're scared that the reason why they don't like him is because of religion. and the fact that during this presidency there has been talk in the area that there's only one religion, and that's the religion of the sitting president, which is totally against everything of the Constitution. And also with him making supposedly a presidential edict that changed the DNA so that people could be considered Jewish off of it and be more inclusive in it. He basically almost made a war with us, with Israel in a way. Now, also under this, we can listen to someone who is basically, I look at them as a tribal, simply because of where they come from. It's not ever been truly out there, and they've had independence from different areas and don't have their own Christianity in any way, or have a way of having Christianity and separate. There is only one practicing other Catholic besides Joe Biden, who looks like he may be president. It's looking like that, but don't count everything out. After all, we're not really certifying an election because the media can't do that, and the election will be certified somewhere around December 20th. And they're just publicly doing all the presidential hopeful election go through, as they do all the time, every single election, and it's being just mass mediated for the first time since, I think, George Washington and John Adams. Now, in looking at this and pushing it on forward with everything, I know I'm probably getting a couple of things wrong here with the order of the presidents, but between the first and the second president, Donald Trump, they could say, is not a practicing Catholic, even though he's a Scottish Messianic, and we're not going to go into any of that really over the stuff with it. It's just something that it's like you would have to have a totally separate channel and look at it in the context of that, which is religion and everything else. Scotland's not a free, independent Catholic state. So as such, they're not recognized as practicing Catholics, don't have to go to communion, tithe, or anything else off of it, because whatever they're doing is doing for the remaking of Catholicism in a Catholic situation. That's why the Catholic Messianic Jew doesn't really have any standing anywhere in itself. This ended when the Scottish kingdom was unified and then years later became Protestant after the Crusades and everything. President Obama, why he's not a USA citizen? Okay, well, if he's a servant of the Mussolini house underneath everything that is the NIV Bible, the Mussolini house is exiled, supposedly, in most of its family and members from Rome, and is kept that way. Therefore, he is an agent of the Mussolini Empire through their religion, or else one of their religious future books to be put out in the United States, just as the new form of Eastern Orthodox for Russia after it fell from the Kremlin and was remade, just as they have plans for Brazil and China. And eventually remaking Protestantry through one of their family members I know of. Played D&D with him for about 3 years, got to listen to a lot of stuff. And his family, while he does descend originally from the Mussolini house, he is in the house that made the Protestant Bible, which allowed the English to not be put under eternal war. He actually says that he can go to the Pope, have them deposed, and instill the main cult as Protestant England over Rome and everything else. This is just stuff that they go along with. It's local neighborhood politics. You go to somebody's house, you're sitting there with them. That's 90% of what they talk about, and they swear it's the Bible Belt. This is just normal situations here. Going back further, everyone says there's Anglo-Saxon. There's not really any Anglo-Saxons here that ever colonized. That would be illegal because there's no one of the English Protestant faith and that's allowed to practice here. They can do that in their own home or anything else. They go, well, they just don't go to church. Well, no one was allowed to colonize here unless they were one of the expendable peoples, and under Christianity, it's agreed with every group out there that they would be considered Jewish and or original inhabitants of the area that could only be made slaves and then turned back onto their people after they were corrupted so much, aka Jews, because the only people that can be put underneath slavery because of the Christian faith, when things were mostly major, how should we say, theocracies, are just that. Now, in moving things forward and along with everything here, and just trying to wrap this up, you could really probably very easily say that each single president from the time of most of the United States, they were, especially after World War II, were probably some form of Catholic that just did not have any type of functioning government similar to how Scotland does for a lot of its situations of the Masonic Lodge and Messianic Lodge. These are not truly recognized by the papacy. And while they may be recognized by the Crown of England and used to the Crown of England, since they're set up under a Catholic situation, then there is separation on this. In the simple fact of this, one can look at that many of the different presidents and everything else were sitting Catholics. Now, what does a sitting practicing Catholic mean or anything else? I can go on with the hokey voodoo of whatever it is and say, yes, I do believe several of them, from a lot of evidence, do look at that there is a form of human sacrifice on getting to the presidency. One of the reasons why we've always been in constant war and everything else. That is a major thing with anybody who's very dovish. I could say that has a lot of plausible conspiracy theory situations for just people, and at the end of the day, psychologically, they're just better because they feel that a threat has been taken away from them and they can just free up so much of their mind. Relax, sleep, or whatever. You could say that's equally true about many tribals. Most people tell me that whenever they don't go on about how black I am or anything else, go on openly about how I'm either a baby eater from China or else that I am completely over at the place where, Last of the Mohicans. And that just because they were wearing red that day doesn't mean, and one of the local school colors is red that's really big around here, lowering somebody down on the fire pit and everything else. So before you sit there and go on about anything else, I've had way more conspiracy theories with everything, and I can just look at you and be like, don't you go around there, kill Native Americans, and say that you're really USA and it's proper racism with everything else. And due to the fact it's proper racism, I think I'll save that one for another video out there. And we can all just listen to how crazy it is, because I actually heard that when they heard Indian about Kamala Harris, they actually started up with some stuff and it got so bad she had to drop out of the race. Just because, configuration of Native American and the name Indian, and, big eyebrows for me. So don't always mean everything. And it's like this. I'm just here for laughs, basically. Like and subscribe.